Is the mic working okay? Everybody hear me back there? Okay. Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Ruth Van Lillian, the minister, and we are so pleased that you're here, especially visitors. Really glad that you made it today. We are a religious community united by our Unitarian Universalist principles, and we are committed to service, spiritual growth, and caring fellowship. If you are new to us or to UUism, you will find more information on the back of the Yellow Order of Service and on our website and Facebook page. If you have not already, please fill out a visitor card so we'll have your information and we can send you information about upcoming events. Unitarians come from a liberal theological background stressing not creed but religious integrity, freedom to be true to our own search for meaning. Universalists stress expansive love that excludes no one. Together we find value in most sacred texts and all of humankind's life-affirming religious aspirations. We are not currently having refreshments after the service because of COVID protocols, but you are welcome to linger inside or to gather outside and visit together after the service. The prelude prepares us for our service.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome again. My name is Gil Brown. I'll be your service leader this morning, and it is so exciting to see so many people here this morning. It's great to be back from the pandemic isolation that we've all been through, so this is really exciting. There are several announcements today listed in your order of service right over here, and I want to draw your attention to a couple of them. First off, be sure to silence your cell phones. We have a UU 101 class online this coming Wednesday, and you can talk to Reverend Ruth, for more details about that, but that's for all new UUs, so that's exciting. We have a service coming up June 26th, and it'll be the T-shirt Sunday, and that's where you wear a T-shirt and that gives something significance for you, or that represents something significant to you. And people come up and show off their T-shirts and share a little message about it. And if people don't wear T-shirts, we don't have a service. So be sure to wear your T-shirts. You can talk to Amanda Pyburn about that. There's a couple of other announcements here about PFLAG, board meetings, and e-news. So be sure to read those announcements. They're good announcements. As a COVID reminder this morning, masking is optional, but if you're going to sing, and we encourage you to sing, please do wear a mask during singing. And also because of COVID, we don't have shared refreshments and snacks these days, but like Reverend Ruth said, we'll be looking forward to socializing at the end of the service with people this morning. So welcome, and I will turn it back over
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
Our chalice will be lit this morning by Julian Albano. We light this chalice, the beacon that calls us to love, to justice, and to a deepening of the Spirit, by Cynthia Landrum.
Please turn in your gray hymnals to number 389. Our opening hymn is Gathered Here, number 389. We'll sing it through twice. And at the end of the second verse, we will repeat the last three words, just so you're not surprised. Please remember to put your mask on if you're going to sing. As you are able, I invite you to stand. Please be seated.
There you go. That one may work with a little bit of patience. John, is this microphone working? There you go.
All right, it's nice to see some new children here in space today. I'm going to read a book about listening, trusting yourself, and not being afraid. It's called Listening with My Heart. And you guys can just look at the pictures. I'm not going to do the plan. All right. Esperanza's tummy fluttered as she practiced her lines on the porch. Today was a class play. Waiting for Mama to walk with her to school, she paced back and forth when she spotted a heart-shaped rock. Esperanza picked it up and showed it to Mama as soon as she stepped outside. I see you found a little treasure, said Mama. Esperanza rubbed its rough surface and felt a twinkle of joy. Maybe it's a sign. For what? Asked Mama. She thought about the class play later that afternoon, wondering what it would finally be like in the spotlight. To put my heart into everything I do, she answered. At that moment, they heard scratching and a soft cry. Esperanza peeked under the stairs and spotted a kitty shaking and shivering. No Mama in sight. She scooped the kitten onto her lap and cuddled her. She's all alone. I think she's hungry. Esperanza reached for her lunch bag, pinched off a piece of chicken, and offered it to the kitty, who gobbled it up. Mama, I think the rock is a reminder to spread kindness and love. That's what we do when we listen with our hearts. I think you're on to something, said Mama. Can we keep Cleopatra, please? Asked Esperanza, who'd already named the kitty. Queens are always welcome at our house, said Mama. If she's still here after school, we'll take her in. At school, Esperanza was more focused on the play than on math or reading. Clutching her stretch during recess, she noticed Val sitting alone on a bench. He was new in school this week and didn't speak much English. She wondered if he felt lonely or scared. Esperanza found a soccer ball and kicked it over to him. A smile spread across Val's face. He stood, popped the ball in the air, then bounced it between his knees and head a few times. Dude's got moves, thought Esperanza. They spent recess giggling and making up hand signals. Afterwards, Esperanza borrowed Miss Owen's English-Vietnamese dictionary. She wrote friend in Vietnamese, drew a picture of Bao and her, then put it on his desk. Esperanza rubbed the rock in her pocket. Listening with her heart made her feel peaceful inside. Finally, it's time for the performance. It was too late for Bao to be in the play, but he stood at Miss Owen's side as a stagehand. Excitement bubbled as Esperanza waited for her cue. Esperanza walked on stage, tripped as she was about to say her first line, and splattered across the stage. When she got up, she forgot her lines, so Miss Owen whispered them to her from backstage. Heat rushed through Esperanza's body as all eyes were glued to her. She wished she could disappear. I ruined the play, thought Esperanza, rushing off stage as soon as she finished her part. I messed up in front of everyone. She tucked herself in behind some props so no one would see her. Esperanza noticed her body shaking and her face still burning. She took a deep breath and dug the rock out of her pocket. It was cracked and lopsided, just how she felt. Esperanza touched her hand to her heart and felt the disappointment. Val found Esperanza a few minutes later and handed her a drawing with the word friend written above it. Esperanza nodded. She hadn't been treating herself with a hand. Esperanza realized this wasn't the first time she'd been unkind to herself. At the soccer game last weekend, she missed the ball that swooshed by her head and they lost the game. Nice work, a player from the other team yelled as the others laughed. Esperanza thought she'd let her team down and was the worst soccer player in the world. Thinking those thoughts would make her feel worse. At the curtain call, Esperanza reminded herself she hadn't ruined the play. She just had an accident, and accidents happen to everyone. Listening with her heart wasn't just about giving kindness and love to others, it was about giving it to herself, too. I can be a friend to myself, thought Esperanza. When Esperanza got home, she focused on her favorite things. She zipped down the hill on her bike, then spent the afternoon painting at the kitchen table. She also got the hug she needed from Mama and some cuddles from Cleopatra. Yeah.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. So sometimes being service leader, you feel like Esperanza, like you just don't know if you're going to ruin the play or not. That story was read by Sarah Ford, our interim director of religious education, or religious exploration. If you have any further questions about our RE program, please talk to Sarah. One of the gifts of this fellowship is to be present with each other during times of joy and hardship. If you'd like, you can use this time to come forward to express any joy, milestone, or concern you may have. You may do so silently or in a few short words. This is a sacred time.
This is our third time here this month. So far, it's been a very loving community, and I just wanted to say for appreciation for everybody being very friendly and kind. A concern that I wanted to share with everybody. June is a significantly difficult month for me on a personal, emotional level. This month marks 6 years since my father took his own life, and there's a lot of emotional weight with that, a lot of family weight with that. And I share that because I know a lot of people have experienced that with friends or family members or loved ones. And the significance of reaching out to those you love while you have time with them and sharing things unsaid, how important that is, because we don't always understand how precious our time is, and how things can change so very quickly. And I really wanted to share the importance of this month keeping in mind those you love, or if you are struggling or someone else is struggling, even though it might seem like the absolute last thing you want to do, please reach out to somebody within your community, because you never know. Like, we don't always realize how many people around us love us and care for us. Even people we may not fully know have compassion and empathy for us and for our situations. But that was just my concern for today. Thank you.
This probably is for those concerned and joys that remain unspoken.
I want to add a joy. Our own Miriam Williams married her sweetheart yesterday, and it was my honor to officiate. So Mrs. Miriam Williams is now married to Mrs. Erica Burkhart, and I hope we'll see them again soon. I imagine they slept in this morning. Our lives are busy and noisy, so I invite you to take this moment to sit in silence and to do it together. And as we breathe, let us remember that as we breathe, we are breathing with all the living creatures who breathe, and thus we are connected to all life. And I will close us with some words adapted from Laura Solomon. My Unitarian Universalism doesn't give me answers to unanswerable questions, but does give me a faith big enough to hold my questions in a place beyond answers. To be human is not to have answers. To be human is to feel as though the enormity of sorrow, anger, grief, and pain will pull me into the undertow. My faith reminds me that this is simply the way of it. Our hearts are meant to crack open under this enormity of grief. Us, human, here, breaking and crying, crumbling and loving still. We love one another with tenderness, rage, hope, and hopelessness. With justice seeking and protesting, we love each other. We do not need to fear the how of putting back together. We will come back together because it is what humans have always done, fallen apart and come together and tethered ourselves to one another. We are an angry and beautiful people. We hold our questions, our rage, our not knowing, our loss, and even in the uncertainty, we know we are made to hold one another. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.
Would the greeters please come forward to collect the offertory? This month's offering will be shared with our charitable community partner, Opportunity Place. Please give generously.
How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. toward the front of the gray hymnal, you'll find the Unitarian Universalist principles, which begin, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person." There are 6 more principles following, and there is even an 8th in process. Today I want to take a closer look at this first principle through the lens of the Black Lives Matter movement. Consider the language we use to describe the significance of human life: value, worth. The Dalai Lama is quoted as saying, "When there is a lack of moral principle, human life becomes worthless." Moral principle, truthfulness, is a key factor. If we lose that, then there is no future. And Bishop Desmond Tutu, whom we lost not long ago, reminds us, "Your ordinary acts of love and hope point to the extraordinary promise that every human life is of inestimable value." How much are you worth? What is your value? What about your family members, your friends, people you work with, people whom you know in some way, strangers you pass on the street? What is the value of people who are citizens of our country, of other countries? Does our human value change over the span of a lifetime? Are babies more or less valuable than young adults, older adults? Does our value peak and then diminish with age? In the ongoing debate over reproductive rights, the question is being asked, are humans more valuable before they are born than afterward? Notice that we use economic language to talk about human life: worth, value. Think about how we talk about each other: winners, losers, she's a gem, he's a prize. When I was a little girl and I would misbehave, which was often, sometimes my mother would catch me at it and fuss at me. "Stop that. I didn't raise you to act that way. You are better than that." Better than. When did we begin to develop a sense of self-worth based on being better than someone else? I'll never measure up to him. At least I'm better than her or she. So how much are you worth? What is your value? The movement Black Lives Matter has and continues to challenge our society and others around the world by advocating specifically for black people. It is remarkable how startling their message is. This is from the website. The Black Lives Matter Global Network continues our commitment to liberation for all black people. This means we are continuing our work, the work of our ancestors, and fighting for our collective freedom because it is our duty. We work vigorously for the freedom and justice for black people, and by extension, all people. We are unapologetically black in our positioning. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. We are guided by the fact that all black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. We are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift black trans folk, especially black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. Now, as you think inwardly, have you read or heard any of this before? And did you hear anything that surprised you? Remember when Black Lives Matter was new? And politicians were running around trying to figure out how to talk about it. Several liberal-leaning leaders rushed to declare their support, but still felt the need to rephrase it. Of course, Black Lives Matter. All lives matter. The problem with that response is that when a white person says to a black person, all lives matter, there's a subtext that comes out from the historical, social context we have inherited. To say all is to push away from the need to talk about black lives. That well-intentioned white respondent is basically saying, I'm uncomfortable with what you're saying, so I will rephrase it in a way that will set you back to the side and pull me closer to the center. I am white and used to being in the center. That's what all, as a response to Black Lives Matter, really means. I remember when serving as a facilitator at a UU student gathering, we got onto the interesting yet slightly disgusting subject of roadkill. I told the group about my mission trip to Honduras many years ago, when I saw, among other things, live armadillos for sale in the town market. When I inquired, I was told they were very popular and taste like pork. Imagine buying and preparing an animal for dinner that we think of as roadkill. Ugh. The value of the armadillo is very different depending on one's cultural perspective and one's personal experience, not to mention how hungry you are. In an effort to explain Black Lives Matter, the character in Candace Carty Williams' novel Queenie declares, it's not putting black lives on a pedestal, it's saying that black lives at this point and historically do not and have not mattered, and that they should. Learning to say Black Lives Matter without hesitation, without qualification, without editing or adding anything to the statement is something that may take practice for some of us. So how much are you worth? What is your value? I am a white Southerner, descended from several generations of white Southerners on both sides. Tragically, there are slaveholders among my ancestors, a fact over which I have no control, but being aware of it shapes me now. I have inherited a legacy of guilt and shame, and my faith prods me to find a meaningful and productive way to redeem this legacy, and I'm working on that. My father told me once of looking through an ancestor's last will and testament from the early 1800s, which bequeathed 3 enslaved human beings to his daughter. She inherited this bequest some years after she had married a Methodist bishop. There ensued, according to letters accompanying the document, a complicated process of receiving these persons into their household before the Civil War, for these persons had nowhere else to go, and trying to get them emancipated and transported north where they could have a chance of a new life. It involved removing an elderly woman from the only home she had ever known to what felt like exile among strangers. Can you imagine? Can any of us? I hope this story makes all of us uncomfortable. It is so much easier to think of the institution of slavery as something that happened long ago to other people, not us. In the Hebrew Bible, the 34th chapter of Exodus describes a declaration from God to Moses that while God is steadfast in love and forgiveness, God will still show the effects of sin to follow from parents to children down the generations. This comes to my mind when I think of the evils of slavery and how generations later the people of the United States are still suffering from the long-reaching effects of this evil. At one time, people of African descent had a literal monetary value placed on them just like livestock. When slavery was legally ended, it seems that black lives lost those artificially constructed values, and for generations the question has hung in the air, what is the value of a black life? And our African American siblings have taken up that question for themselves, declaring unapologetically that black lives matter. It must be said. It must be shouted from the rooftops. Black lives do matter. They matter immensely. And it's time that this country sees it and starts behaving accordingly. So how much are we worth? What is our value? It's really an uncomfortable question now, isn't it? Is this the right way to think about human lives? It sounds, well, quite mercenary, doesn't it? You remember the nasty character of Mr. Potter in that beloved holiday movie, that wonderful It's a Wonderful Life? Remember how he laughed at George Bailey clutching his $500 life insurance policy and saying, "You're worth more dead than alive." That is the premise of the film, right? What is the value of one person's life? Our Unitarian Universalist first principle affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That sounds better, but I think an ongoing examination of the idea of worth is in order. Does this question of worth imply a mercenary attitude in our culture? How much does your existence benefit me? Does my existence benefit you? Is such benefit the foundation of how we choose to see each other and how we interact? If all people have inherent worth, is that worth the same for every person? If we really believed that, we would also believe that the more people born into the world, the richer the world becomes. But we don't act that way, do we? We talk about overpopulation and limited resources. And this comes up especially around the question of immigration. We hear pro-immigration arguments of how immigrants built this country, though the cost to the indigenous people is hardly ever mentioned. And therefore, more immigrants will be valuable to the U.S. and make it richer. I knew a Unitarian Universalist who stood up in his congregation and said, "If we stop immigration, we'll have no one to clean our bathrooms." Now think about that. Think about what that is saying. We hear anti-immigration arguments that immigrants take valuable resources away from U.S. citizens and make the country poorer. We can continue to talk about the value of human lives in all kinds of twisted, evil contexts. Human trafficking, which is a modern kind of slavery, homelessness, prostitution, child pornography, the illegal drug trade, war, terrorism, school shootings. All of these contexts invariably talk about human lives in monetary terms. We even hear our own children talked about in these terms. The cost of raising a child. We can't afford to have children. College tuition is so expensive. Debt is ever before us, taking us down. How can we begin to think of human beings in terms other than what we are worth to each other? Economic analysis has its uses, but is this the best lens through which to look at one another? Consider the diversity of human existence, young and old, strong and weak, disabled and non-disabled. Did you notice how I phrased that? Trans and cis, the gender spectrum, the racial and ethnic diversity, the varieties of education, custom, and practice. Shall we go on justifying the existence of human beings on a cost-effective basis? Instead of worth, we might consider thinking in terms of worthiness. Worthy means deserving effort, attention, or respect. It also means good enough. What if we apply this adjective to human beings instead of one which implies economic value? Think of people that you know, everyone you've encountered, everyone you've heard of. Is it not true that every one of them deserves some effort, attention, or respect in some fashion? And even if they may not all seem good enough, might there be attention and effort that could help move them in that direction? Black lives matter because they are human lives. And there is a horrible history and a current social dynamic which names or implies that black lives are not worthy, that they are not deserving of effort, attention, and respect. If we reject such obvious nonsense, then we too must declare that black lives do indeed matter, and the lives of all marginalized people matter. They deserve more and better than they have received up to now. They are worthy. So what are you worth? What is your value? Well, as a Unitarian Universalist, I say those are the wrong questions. Those questions are meaningless. The real question is, are you worthy? Are you deserving of effort, attention, and respect? I say yes. Yes, you are. Yes, we are. We are beautiful. We are whole. Our loving is miraculous. How deeply we are connected to one another in the depths of our souls. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be. Would you take your teal hymnals? Please turn to 1053, our closing hymn. You've already heard me sing it. How could anyone? 1053. Please remember to mask if you're going to sing, and as you are able, I invite you to stand. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you are anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Never has it been more true than now. We extinguish this flame, but the sparks within us remain alight. From each of us in our supposed solitude, the signals buzz and hum, sparking through space to one another, connecting us invisibly, but palpably. We are one and from every window our light shines.
Siblings and kindred, let us go from this place confident that we are worthy, that we are worth loving, that our loving is miraculous, and that we are connected to one another. Following the postlude, let us go in peace. Amen. Shalom. Blessed be.